The wealthiest retirees I've looked at all have one thing in common. It's not what they own, it's a list of things they stopped buying about 10 years before they retired, and almost none of it is what you'd guess. It's not the yachts, it's not the private jets. Most of them never owned those in the first place. What they cut is much smaller, much quieter, and much closer to the way most people actually spend. Here's the uncomfortable part. Most people think they can't afford to retire. They can. They just can't afford to retire and keep paying for the version of themselves they were at 45. The wealthy retirees figured that out, sometimes by accident, sometimes the hard way. Today I'm going to walk you through 7 things they stopped buying. Some you'll expect, a couple you won't, and the last one is the one that actually matters. Number 1. New cars. Let me put numbers on this one first because the math is brutal. A new car loses about 20% of its value the moment you drive it off the lot, another 10% in the first year. By year 3, it's worth roughly half of what you paid. A $50,000 new car, financed at typical rates, costs about $65,000 over the life of the loan. A $30,000 3-year-old version of the same car, bought in cash, costs $30,000. That's a $35,000 difference on one car purchase, made every 10 years for 40 years of adult life. The math adds up to roughly a small house. The wealthy retirees figured this out somewhere in their 40s, and from that point on, they bought 3-year-old vehicles in cash and drove them for 10 years. The kicker is, the cars drive the same. The new car smell wears off in 3 months. The loan payment lasts 6 years. That's a bad trade, and they stopped making it. Number 2. Convenience subscriptions. And I don't mean Netflix. Everyone talks about Netflix. I mean the quiet ones, the ones that don't feel like subscriptions. Meal kits, premium shipping memberships, the 8 different apps charging $9.99 a month that you forgot you signed up for. None of these feel like much on their own. That's the design. But added up, the average household runs about $200 to $300 a month in subscription fees they don't actively track. That's $3,600 a year for things most people couldn't list if you asked them to. The wealthy retirees do something boring. Once a year, they sit down and read their credit card statements line by line. Anything they didn't consciously use that month, they cancel, even if they might use it later, especially if they might use it later. Because I might use it is how the subscription industry was built. Number 3. Branded clothing. And here's where most people get it backwards. They assume wealthy retirees wear expensive clothes. Some do, most don't. What they wear is quality clothes, and there's a real difference. Quality means good fabric, good fit, lasts 10 years. Expensive means a logo on the chest that tells strangers what you paid. The wealthy retirees figured out that logos are rented status, quality is owned comfort. And rented status has to be re-rented every season. A $300 shirt with a designer logo gets replaced when the brand falls out of fashion. A $300 shirt without one gets worn for a decade. Same money, completely different math. And here's the part that's a little funny. The wealthiest person in most rooms is usually the worst dressed, not because they can't afford better, because they stopped caring what the room thought about 30 years ago. Number 4. The upgrade. This is bigger than any single category. It's a pattern. The wealthy retirees stopped buying the next version of things they already own. New phone every 2 years, new appliances when the old ones still work, new furniture because the room needs refreshing, new kitchen because the old one is dated. It's not that they can't afford it, it's that they notice something most people never do. The upgrade rarely changes their actual life. The new phone takes the same pictures, the new kitchen cooks the same food, the new couch holds the same body. At some point, they ran the experiment, and the experiment came back the same every time. The upgrade is a tax on the feeling that you need something new to feel like your life is moving forward. Wealthy retirees stopped paying that tax. Number 5, and this one might surprise you, restaurant drinks. Not eating out. They eat out, sometimes a lot. What they don't do is order the drinks. A $14 cocktail at dinner costs the restaurant about $3 to make. A $60 bottle of wine at dinner costs the restaurant about $15. The food markup is reasonable. The drink markup is where restaurants make their margins. The wealthy retirees figured this out somewhere around their fifth dinner out of the month. They eat the meal, they have water or coffee, and they pocket the $40 difference per meal that everyone else hands to the restaurant out of habit. This isn't about being cheap, it's about noticing where the margin actually is. 4 dinners a month, $40 saved each time, is about $2,000 a year. Invested for 20 years at average market returns, that's roughly $90,000. From skipping the wine. Number 6, and this one needs a careful word. The wealthy retirees stop taking generic financial advice. Notice I said generic, not free. The two get confused, and they're not the same thing. Generic advice is calibrated for the average viewer, the average reader, the average listener. Your situation isn't average, nobody's is. Generic advice is built for average. Wealth is built in the exceptions. And the gap between general advice and your actual life is where the most expensive mistakes happen. A piece of advice that's right for 80% of people can still be catastrophic for the 20% who don't fit the assumptions. And nobody tells you which group you're in. What the wealthy retirees have is a small, boring team. A CPA who knows their tax situation, an estate attorney who set up their trust correctly the first time, sometimes a fiduciary advisor who's legally required to act in their interest. None of these people are famous, none of them have YouTube channels, and none of them give one-size-fits-all advice because they actually know the size. The wealthy retirees pay $2,000 a year for a CPA who saves them $20,000 in taxes. They pay $3,000 once for an estate plan that saves their family $100,000 in probate. The cheapest thing they ever bought was calibrated advice. The most expensive thing was the generic version they took for free. Which brings me to number 7, and this is the one that actually matters. The wealthy retirees stopped buying things that prove who they used to be. This one is hard to see because it doesn't look like spending, it looks like keeping. The boat in the driveway that hasn't been in the water in 3 years. The second home they visit twice a year and spend most of the visit doing maintenance on. Their country club membership they kept out of habit after they stopped playing golf. The storage unit holding furniture from a house they sold a decade ago. None of these things are about money, not really. They're about identity. Each one represents a version of themselves they used to be. The boating guy, the second home family, the golf club regular. And letting go of the expense feels like letting go of the person. The retirees who stayed wealthy are the ones who figured out that holding on to those expenses doesn't preserve the identity. It just rents storage space for it. At some point, they did the audit, not on their portfolio, on their life. They looked at every recurring expense and asked one question. Is this still who I am, or is this who I used to be? The things that were used to be got sold, canceled, or given away. And here's the strange part. Almost none of them missed it. The boat sat in the driveway not because they loved boating, because they loved having been the kind of person who owned a boat. Once they let it go, the identity didn't disappear. It just stopped costing them money. So let me bring this all together. 7 things wealthy retirees stopped buying. New cars, hidden subscriptions, branded clothing, the upgrade, restaurant drinks, generic advice, and the past version of themselves. Notice what's not on this list. Nothing extreme. No coupon clipping. No skipping vacations. No eating beans for dinner. The pattern isn't deprivation. It's the opposite. It's noticing which purchases were never giving you anything in the first place. The wealthy retirees aren't rich because they suffered. They're rich because they stopped paying for things that weren't really for them. Wealth isn't built by adding more. It's built by subtracting what never mattered. So here's the question worth sitting with for a minute. Pull up your last credit card statement. Actually pull it up. How many of these 7 things are on it? Not how many you think should be, how many actually are. Drop the number in the comments. I read them.